At 6:45 a.m., officers enter a small brick home in Aberdeen. Australia, the air is heavy, sweet, metallic, wrong, inside the kitchen. A pot simmers on the stove, a table set for two, and something hanging on the back door that should never exist. The woman who lived here was no stranger to knives. Her name was Katherine Knight, a slaughterhouse worker whose temper had carved fear into every man she loved. She once warned her partner, "If I can't have you, no one will." That night she proved it. What police found would shake a nation and earn her the title Australia's female Hannibal Lecter. This is the true story of Katherine Knight, the first woman in Australia sentenced to life without parole. Katherine Knight was born in 1955 in a rural mining town called Tenterfield, a place where violence wasn't a headline. It was a habit. Her parents met through an affair that split their community in two. And from childhood, Katherine absorbed the idea that love always came with pain. Her father was a butcher, quick-tempered and loud. Her mother was tough and bitter, often telling her daughters that men couldn't be trusted. Yet she depended on one to survive by age 12. Katherine was quiet at school but cruel at home, collecting injured animals, nursing them back to health, then suddenly turning on them. Her teachers wrote that she was polite but detached. They didn't see the detachment as a warning sign. When she turned 15, Katherine left school and followed her father into the abattoir. There she found a strange sense of peace among the machines and blood-slick floors. She was given her own set of knives, the first gift she ever truly valued. Every night she would hang them above her bed, so they were always within reach if I needed them. Her co-workers said she laughed when others flinched, and that she treated every cut as precision art. Outside work, she was obsessive about men. Her relationships burned fast, passionate for weeks, then erupting in violence that always ended with someone bleeding or running. By her 20s, Knight was feared in her small town, not because of what she had done yet, but because of what everyone suspected she could do. And as her mother once said, if Kathy ever gets angry enough, no one will stop her. This is how it began, a girl shaped by violence, armed with knives and waiting for a reason to use them. By the late 1970s, Katherine Knight had become both a legend and a threat in Aberdeen. At 23, she met her first husband, David Kellett, a truck driver with a taste for beer and bar brawls. Locals said they were a match made in hell. Their wedding night was remembered for one thing. Katherine tried to strangle him because he fell asleep after one round instead of 5. When police arrived the next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. It was the first recorded incident of her rage, but not the last. Neighbors learned that every time the curtains closed at the Knight house, the fights began. She stabbed his clothes when he came home late, slashed his boots when he refused to argue, and once hit him with a frying pan so hard it dented the iron. When David finally left with another woman, Katherine spiraled. She was found in the middle of the road pushing their baby in a stroller. Screaming for cars to hit her, she was hospitalized but released within weeks. Diagnosed as highly volatile but not psychotic. That line would follow her for decades. Soon she found a new man, David Saunders, a miner who moved in and bought her a dog for companionship. When he went out drinking without her, she cut his clothes again and slashed his tires. Then one day, as he packed to leave, She stood in the doorway and said calmly, "Don't ever think you can walk away from me alive." Saunders fled the town. He never filed a complaint because no one did back then. Knight was a woman, a mother, a butcher, and no one wanted to believe she could be dangerous. But behind her smile was a pattern control, possession and punishment. Every man she loved was a mirror to shatter, and soon that mirror would shatter for good. By 1995, Katherine Knight had reinvented herself once again. New house, new job, and a new man, John Price, known in Aberdeen as Pricey. He was a hard-working father of 3, easygoing, respected, the kind of man who stayed out of trouble. Their relationship began like all her others, laughter, drinking, and gifts. But behind the warmth, the same patterns started to crawl back. She wanted control. If he didn't answer the phone, she'd wait outside his work for hours. If he came home late, she'd accuse him of cheating. When John refused to marry her, Katherine recorded a video of his children's toys and work tools, then sent it to his boss, claiming he was stealing company property. He was fired the next day. That betrayal fractured something in him. He kicked her out, but within weeks she returned, crying. Promising to change, she cooked for him, cleaned the house, and told his friends she'd finally settled down. They warned him not to take her back. He said, "She can't be that bad. I can handle her." He couldn't. By early 2000, his friends noticed bruises on his arms. He confided that she'd slashed him during an argument, then begged forgiveness minutes later when he mentioned leaving for good. She looked him in the eye and said, "You'll never leave me. Even if you do, I'll make sure you never love again." On February 29th, John Price went to the police station and told officers, "If I go missing, it's because Katherine did it." He laughed after saying it, maybe half joking. Maybe not. That night he went home anyway. His friends begged him to stay somewhere else. But John Price went to bed in his small brick house. And by morning, police would walk into one of the most disturbing scenes in Australian history. March 1st, Aberdeen, Australia. It was quiet. The kind of night where street lights hum louder than the wind. Inside John Price's home, the curtains were drawn. The clock ticked past 11 p.m., and his neighbors saw his bedroom light turn off for the last time. Katherine Knight was outside. She'd driven there earlier, dressed neatly, calm, carrying a set of kitchen knives wrapped in cloth. The same knives she'd once hung above her bed like trophies. When she entered the house, nothing seemed out of place. Dinner plates still in the sink, the TV flickering blue light across the lounge. She showered, then quietly slid into bed beside him. Hours later, only one of them would wake up. By 6:45 a.m., police arrived after Price's co-workers reported he hadn't shown up. They saw blood on the front door and forced entry. Inside was silence, heavy, suffocating silence. The officers described a scene that no training could prepare them for. The stove was on, a pot simmering, and on the table 2 plates were set, each with name tags, John Price and Katherine Knight. They called for backup before stepping further in. The discovery that followed would mark one of the darkest crimes in Australian history. When the news broke, the public couldn't comprehend it. Headlines called her the female Hannibal Lecter, though investigators knew her motive wasn't madness, it was control. Every detail felt rehearsed, deliberate, ritualistic. That morning, Katherine was found half awake in a nearby bedroom, dazed but alive. She muttered only one line to the officers, "Tell them he got what he deserved." The detectives didn't know it yet, but they were standing inside a case that would redefine what life without parole meant for a woman in Australia. The courtroom in New South Wales was silent when Katherine Knight entered for the first time. She wore beige prison clothes, her red hair pulled back. Expression flat, almost bored, reporters filled every seat, whispering the same question: how could a woman do this? The evidence was overwhelming: police photographs, DNA reports, and Knight's own handwritten notes were enough to convict 10 times over. But she pled not guilty, claiming she remembered nothing. When the judge described the crime scene, she laughed quietly just once, and the jury never forgot it. The trial became a national fixation. News anchors called her the butcher who made Australia flinch. Some demanded the death penalty. Others wanted to know why. Psychiatrists testified that she suffered from borderline personality disorder, that her violence was rooted in abandonment and control, not insanity. One doctor said, "She doesn't kill for pleasure. She kills to keep what she thinks is hers." By the third day, Knight changed her plea to guilty, not out of remorse, but because she could no longer listen to the evidence read aloud. The judge refused to release her statement and ruled that she would serve life imprisonment with no possibility of parole, the first Australian woman ever given that sentence. When the verdict was announced, the crowd outside cheered. Inside, Knight didn't cry or look away. She simply asked for her knives to be returned to her house so they wouldn't rust. The courtroom froze. In prison today, she spends her time painting and sewing, rarely speaking about John Price. Her cell walls are covered with drawings of animals and family portraits. To this day, she remains one of the most studied female offenders in criminal psychology, a living case file in control, rage, and denial. More than 2 decades have passed since Katherine Knight was locked away, yet her shadow still hangs over Australian true crime history. The house in Aberdeen where it happened was quietly sold, renovated, and later abandoned again. Locals say no tenant ever stayed longer than a month. To criminologists, Knight's case became a textbook, a blueprint for studying female-perpetrated domestic homicide. She didn't kill out of impulse, but ritual, a need to control, to possess, to punish. Every act reflected a lifetime of violence learned and recycled. Students at law schools still debate her sentence. Some call it justice. Others call it fear, the system's reaction to a woman who crossed society's final taboo. Even behind bars, she forces that question. If cruelty isn't gendered, why did it take one woman to prove it? In interviews, former officers admit they still remember the smell of that house. Not because of what was inside, but because it lingered in their minds long after they left. One detective said, "I've seen worse crime scenes, but none that felt so calm." In prison, Katherine Knight paints landscapes, mountains, rivers, fields. She signs them K. Knight, sells them through intermediaries, and never speaks about her past. Psychologists describe her as stable, polite, emotionless. The knives she once kept above her bed were melted down years ago, but the story they tell still cuts deep, a reminder that evil can wear a uniform, a smile or an apron. In the end, she wasn't a monster from fiction. She was human, and that's what makes her story unforgettable. A warning carved not into flesh but into memory. If you thought the horror ended here, you're wrong. What other dark rituals and forbidden practices are still being performed in secret? Dive deeper into the chilling world of haunted ceremonies, banned footage, and eerie folklore that refuses to stay buried. Click on the playlist to uncover terrifying recordings, lost evidence, and disturbing stories they never wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly uploads of spine-tingling footage and dark tales that echo from the shadows. This is the Forbidden's Archive, where the hidden truth and haunting evidence come to life.